Hi Chris, how are you?
Good afternoon, Rod. Yes, I'm well. Here we are on the 15th of June, 2025. It's episode 177 and it's tropical. It's lovely and warm. It's beautiful today. How's it with you?
It was tropical this morning. It's since clouded over and we have bits of rain forecast now. But it's been quite a nice day. I can't really complain.
According to my phone, I have no rain for 9 days.
Wow.
It's going to be dry and not good for my grass and my flowers and my allotment.
Yeah, that's a nicer forecast than we were expecting in the west, I think.
Yeah, sorry, dude.
Such is life. If you live in Wales by the beach, it's just what you expect. It's where cold air and warm air meet and you get a little more cloud and stuff, don't you? Such is life.
True. This is true. Should we get straight into the show?
Yeah, we got quite a lot, haven't we? We'll try and get through it in a reasonable time. We seem to have settled at about 1 hour 20, so we'll see how we get on today.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be on the money. Let's go. So follow up then. First up, we were going to talk about devices not supported by new versions of macOS.
Yep, so following WWDC last week, the thinking was lots of things would be out of support. We didn't have a lot of that to hand, or at least we weren't paying enough attention because we were excited with all the new shiny. But now is the time to sort of see what we're going to be losing in the 6 months ahead, really. And it's probably worth being clear, a lot of this stuff, even if your Intel Mac or whatever isn't supported going forward, it's not immediately dead. You've got a bit of time. There'll be security updates in the short term, but it's really time to start thinking about updates for a lot of these products.
I think it's worth noting though, Apple don't normally pre-announce when they're going to drop support for things, so it's good. It's a mature move. It's the right move, but it's odd that they've announced they're not going to stop supporting next year from next year's OS onwards, which I think is the right thing to do because it means they've thought about it, they've shown it with people, the decision's made, and people can make informed decisions.
Yeah, I mean, most companies have a roadmap, don't they? So, I think it's not unreasonable that Apple should try and at least give people a clue. Anyway, let's get through it. So first off, macOS is dropping support for airport and time capsule disks and time machine backups next year. That's not to say time machine is stopping altogether, but the router that had the disk built into it is being end of life, yeah?
Yeah, and interestingly, when I installed a beta on my Mac, it popped up and said, you won't be able to back up to my current destination, which isn't a time capsule, but is a Synology that's got the AFP format, which was Apple File Protocol, I think it was called, for networking. And so I need to change the format and how I'm doing my time capsule or time machine sharing, because this format won't be supported from next year. So again, it's good they're warning you in the OS that I've got time, and for me, I don't need new hardware. I just need to change how I set it up, which I can go and do.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing that they're warning it. People still use AFP, really? I thought we'd all entirely moved to SMB or NFS file sharing.
I set this up donkeys years ago and haven't really touched my Synology since. It's a very old Synology, to be fair, and it's done very well, but yeah, massively outdated. So it's good that they're signposting it, I think, and it, like I say, gives people time.
Yeah, fair enough. I think this is the right thing to be doing. I mean, they only ever made one generation of this device, I think, anyway, and the networking protocol we've moved on from. So I wonder how many people still have got these sort of lying around doing their Wi-Fi with airport and all the rest of it anyway. I mean, most people have moved to Eero or something more significant, so I guess it is what it is.
And to be fair, it's been supported for a long time, so that's pretty good on Apple.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll give them a bit of kudos on that. I think that I found slightly surprising is they also announced the end of life of Rosetta 2.
Yep.
Which not quite end of life, but certainly end of support in one sense. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah. So this is Rosetta 2 came with macOS, and it's for Apple Silicon Macs to pretend that they're like Intel, and it allows people to run Intel software on recent versions of macOS, and from next year that won't be shipped with macOS 27, and so Rosetta 2 will be dead from next year.
Not quite.
Okay, go on.
That's not 100% accurate. It will be end of life, not end of life, but sort of no longer supported. But for some games and things like that, some Intel-based games, there will still be some Rosetta 2 support baked into them.
Oh, okay.
I think where it gets a little bit odd will be things like DaVinci Resolve that I edit this podcast with. Some of the plugins for that, base plugins that come with it, require Rosetta 2 to work. So this is really them putting other developers on notice that they're going to stop supporting this. And I don't know why, really. I mean, there's no great urgency to switch Rosetta 2 off, I don't think.
No, but I guess they're doing it hand in hand because they've also announced that macOS won't support Intel from next year. So you'll still get security updates, but you won't the new OS won't work on an Intel device. So I guess it goes hand in hand with that, and they're wanting to move on. Maybe.
Yeah,
It does feel a bit premature, though. I would agree.
it's a bit aggressive. I mean, I don't even remember. I think the original Rosetta, which went from PowerPC to Intel Macs, lasted 5 years. And this is probably in that ballpark. We're probably getting 5 years of Rosetta 2. But there's no great urgency to do this. The Apple Silicon Macs have got performance to spare. It opens Macs up to the world of Mac gaming. I think it's slightly... There's no rush for this. They could have left this 10 years, unless it's really aggressive to get people off Intel altogether, or they feel there's just some laggardly developers. But I see no performance harm in leaving Rosetta 2 lying around.
Yeah, I think it feels a little aggressive. I was quite surprised.
Yeah, definitely. And not spoken about in the keynote. This came out of the State of the Union, didn't it?
Yeah. That's the State of the Union. They announced no more Intel from next year for new OSs, but they will continue to ship security updates.
And that brings us right into what's supported now. So if you have an iMac Pro or something like that, that is no longer supported with macOS Tahoe. You won't be installing that. If you have one of the very last generation MacBook Pros, MacBook Airs, I think, and the Mac Pro, the ridiculously expensive computer that some people did actually rush out and buy, you've got 1 more year for that. So Tahoe is the last version of the operating system that will fully support Intel Macs.
Yeah, which again, feels quite quick that's come around, but I guess they're going to move on, and they will still do security updates for a period. But if you want to run the new OSs and have all the new functionality next September, you're going to have to get rid of your Intel device.
Yeah, it's a bit sad. There has been a couple of tools lying around that can force older Macs to actually have the most up-to-date operating system. So I did this on an old MacBook Pro. I found a tool that would let me install Sequoia, even though I think it was only up to pick an OS, I don't know, Big Sur or something that was supported on it. And it worked fine. But if they're actually taking the Intel binaries out and the Rosetta 2 goes hand in hand with that, then you're going to be knackered on these, on these machines. Even though I suspect the Mac Pro has a lot of performance in it that would still be relevant.
Well, it's probably quicker than some of the devices we're using that are Apple Silicon. It's certainly well equipped, isn't it?
Well, you can put graphics cards in there, can't you? You can't do that with other things. And no matter how okay Apple Silicon onboard GPUs are, they're not a patch on a dedicated graphics card.
No, that's true. Will next year be like Snow Leopard? Because I think this was when Snow Leopard came out years ago, which was the first version to drop support for PowerPC, and they took loads of stuff out. And will it make it faster? Will they get rid of loads of legacy? It'll be interesting to see whether it makes a difference.
I don't know. I mean, I seem to remember you being pretty aggressive on not running Rosetta/Intel binaries on your computer anyway. So the fact that they're not running at all, I can't think it'll make that much difference.
No, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So that's Macs. What about phones? I mean, I think the most notable thing is that the iPhone XR is going away, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So basically the iPhone 11 or newer is what most people will be running, and it's the SE 2nd gen or newer. So the SE 2nd or 3rd gen you can run. But frustratingly for me, on a personal note, my family, a lot of them run XRs. So if they want new features, I'm going to need to think about something there.
How old is the XR?
That's a good question.
That is a good question. So it was. Well, just while you're finding the answer, I'm going to take a guess. I feel like it was about 2012, because it was the generation with the iPhone XS, with the iPhone XS, and then we had the XR after that.
It came out on the 26th of October, 2018.
Oh, miles out. That's how long I feel that design's
been. So it's about 7 years.
Yeah, it's not bad, I guess, is it? I mean,
that's okay.
All right. I mean, fair enough.
And it will still get security updates for another year. So I think you've got 18 months until you probably want to think about swapping out. But yeah, it's not great, especially if people buy them second hand. You don't get as much longevity out of them.
Yeah, although the batteries in them are probably shot by now anyway.
That is true.
Yeah. But I guess you can have that updated. And last but not least, I can't speak to iPads. I've got a generational blank in my head when it comes to iPads. But it looks like you're okay as far as the iPad Mini 5th generation and later, and anything with an A17 in it. Or before, actually. There's A16 in here.
Yeah, no. So it's the regular iPad's got to have the 8th gen or newer. The Mini, so both the recent Minis that don't have the home button on it, and then iPad Pro, it was from the 3rd generation, if you've got the big one, or the 1st generation 11th inch. So they're still doing a good job there, I think, with the iPad. I'm not surprised by this because obviously the new look for both iOS and iPadOS is a bit more CPU intensive, GPU intensive. So I'm not surprised we've seen the minimum bar get raised. I still think they're doing a pretty good job of supporting most things.
I think we'll talk about our experiences of the betas and things like that when we get to that section, because I had a temptation to really jump in there and talk about some performance on computers. But let's pause that. So there you go. They're the devices that we said would come back about that, and they're the devices that won't be supported.
Yep. So I don't think there's any big shocks. I think maybe Intel's a little bit more aggressive. That's about it.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Moving on, to get back to our regularly scheduled program, we know that the Danes are particularly annoyed at American companies at the moment, probably because they keep, trying to invade Greenland or threatening to buy Greenland off Denmark, and I think Denmark rightly feels a bit annoyed by Americans at the moment, plus all the stuff that we've been talking about with Microsoft particularly. Anyway, this is just a little story on the Register from Friday the 13th, so quite a recent story about them trying to dump Microsoft. So they're going to stop using the operating systems, they're going to stop using Microsoft Office, they're going to use LibreOffice instead, and Linuxes, and Nextcloud for the file synchronization, and I'm all for this.
I think it's cool. I can imagine this being hard to get to swap people over, to get used to using something different. But I can understand why they want to do it. I do get it. I'm there, but this is going to be hard. It's a hard transition.
I think it's as good a time as any, really. With Windows 10 about to be out of support as well, presumably lots of governmental computers aren't bang up to date anyway, knowing how the NHS and government departments work in the UK. So if you're going to be replacing them, or not having to replace them and just install a secure operating system on them, that gives you the chance to do that. And you can put LibreOffice on with Windows now, so you could start getting people used to their Office workflow before you start swapping other things out from under them as well. So I think this is the way Munich went back and did it when it had its second bite at the cherry for moving the whole, not just Munich, but Bavaria to Linuxes as well. So they're not the first to do this, and I think more power to their elbows, frankly. Go Denmark.
No, I agree. I just think it will be hard.
No, well, nothing's easy, is it? But then upgrading versions of Windows from one to the other isn't it? Putting Windows 11 on people's desktops isn't straightforward. They feel they need to be retrained with that. So go all in, I say.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fair.
I agree with you. It won't be easy. People are very used to it. And let's face it, your administrative users and people who just come in, they don't view a computer as something they want to explore. They view a computer as, this is a means to do my job.
Yeah.
And if the way of doing their job has changed, then that's a problem. However, I genuinely think in this day and age where almost everything can be done in a web browser, it really doesn't matter.
That is true. I think the bigger thing is, though, buttons will be in different places. Some things will have a different name. And that would just take time. And people will need to probably resave their files in their native format, or carry on using the Microsoft standard, I guess, and share that. And just things like that will be different.
Well, I mean, speaking as a LibreOffice user, or trying to be a LibreOffice user, it opens all the file formats and will save back to those file formats. And you, as an administrator, can roll out as a default, always default back to Microsoft formats. But I know for a fact that Microsoft Office can actually open ODF files and things like that anyway. So it's really not that big a deal.
Oh, okay. That's quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, XML and XML-based document formats really made a difference to the sort of standardization. The EU have been chasing Microsoft for years to open up their standards, and let's face it, most things can open up a Word document. I think the slightly trickier stuff is if you're used to, tracking changes, revisioning, versioning documents, watermarking. When you get out of the basics and for the kinds of things lots of Office users use, then there's differences. I think the file formats is largely a solved problem.
Okay. I haven't done this for a long time, so that is good to know.
You need to look outside your box, Chris.
That is true.
Somebody who's looked outside the box is the Wall Street Journal. Apple having snubbed John Gruber, with the theory being that he wrote the wrong article at the wrong time about the vaporware article. Apple executives did give a couple of interviews, and in this case one to the Wall Street Journal and Joanna Stern particularly. This was 4 days ago at the time of recording, and she does ask some slightly tougher questions of Craig Federighi, and it's Joswiak is the other guy, isn't it?
Do you know what's interesting about this interview?
What?
She was given 24 hours notice.
Oh, wow, that is interesting.
Feels a bit... we haven't really sorted out something. Could you just come and interview our two top guys?
Yeah.
A bit last minute.
It was a bit last minute, and she asks some of the tougher questions about Siri isn't good enough, is it? What happened with Apple Intelligence? And they skirt around. They give very surface level answers to that, I would say. It's quite a short interview. It's only about 7 minutes, I think.
I think she's going to do a longer interview coming. I think they've posted some of it, and they're going to put a bit more. I can only imagine the media training they had the week before this interview. This is how you deal with these awkward questions. This is the answers you give. This is what you do and don't do. So, I'm not surprised they're skirting around it. And I don't think they should be committing to dates and things now, because they did that last year. They got it massively wrong. Let's not get bitten again.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about this. I'm trying to be excited about all the things Apple have put in, because I've been so negative for so long. I think it's good to be excited. At the same time, where was the question about regulators, Department of Justice in the EU? And that's something people want to know.
That's all been forgotten, hasn't it?
Has it though?
Sorry, it's been forgotten for the 2 weeks of WWDC. I think it will come back.
It will come back, and it's just to say, I think that we haven't lost sight of this stuff on the podcast. We will get carried away with excited stuff, talking about betas and things and all the rest of it. But I think it's good. I think it's good that Apple allowed it, in the sense, or entertained it. That they haven't completely lost sight of the fact that they do need to talk to the press about stuff like this. I think is really important. Obviously, they're falling out with John Gruber in some way, but he's still got his contacts inside of Apple. I don't think it'll do him any serious harm. But interesting that it was even a thing.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And as part of the sort of media junket that Federici particularly went on, he spoke to people at Ars Technica as well. And the road to multitasking will be a long one. And I get the impression something has changed in Apple. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit in all of these operating systems that we've been asking for a while. And it's like they've just gone, oh, go on then, let's just do it. And they've parceled it in at the same time as a design update. But is that not the impression you get? That that iPadOS particularly received an awful lot of changes that people weren't asking for 10 years.
Yeah, it's amazing what they've done with iPads to make them a lot more like their macOS siblings. I wonder if they've had an epiphany of what the next 5 years looks like, and they've got that plan. Is it something that's going to be linked to your folding iPhone? I don't know. Or is this their way of going, the folding iPhone isn't going to run iPadOS, it's still going to run iOS, but you can have bigger apps. And actually, if you want a proper iPad, you still go and buy a proper iPad. I don't know. I wonder if they're trying to work out how they're going to do that differentiation. If phone screens do end up folding, why would I then go and buy an iPad? And maybe this is their way of doing it.
Maybe. I mean, it's definitely interesting that there's a lot more going on the iPad at the moment. I mean, you could say it was the bare minimum, and again, we'll talk about it soon, but, even the words he said, and it says at the top of the article here, when Federici said, wow, after an hour and 90 minutes, more windows, a pointer, and a menu bar, who would have thought? We truly pulled off a mind-blowing release. Well, no, you did exactly what computers have been doing since 1984.
They've had a massive change in direction. And like I say, I think what you're seeing here is this is how they're going to differentiate the iPad from the big iPhone. I think they've realised they've got to do something, or they would have to kill it.
Macs are so good now as well that this is a real problem. Steve Jobs' vision of a computer they just tapped and it came on, we have that now in our Macs. The iPad isn't that special anymore in that way. And it's more expensive in many cases.
More expensive. And the battery in a Mac is way better than the iPad. Whereas, go back 10, 15 years, the iPad was seen as the staller that had this amazing battery instant on, and the Mac has trumped it on all fronts. It's a lot of amazing engineering has gone into macOS.
So I think you're right. I think it's that they've woken up and they've gone, right, the iPad's not different enough from anything anymore. We actually need to make it useful.
I reckon this is teeing them up, like I say, for folding phones 18 months from now.
We shall see. Something else that is also teeing up Apple is the fact that, and we didn't report on this at the time because of WWDC, so June the 4th, Apple's attempt to pause the App Store antitrust order failed. So they had an appeal in. They're not allowed to. The court basically dismissed it straight away. So Apple, in America at least, will still have to allow for notifications of payment options outside of the App Store. And good, frankly.
Agreed. Now let's get it worldwide.
Yep, I think that's all we need to say about that. Should we do some news?
Yeah, let's get into it.
So unusually for a macOS beta, you and I got an update very shortly after the original thing. Normally it's 2 weeks after the launch of the original beta. You get an update. The whole world in general does, but that didn't happen this time.
No, within 4 days, I think I was out, but you text me. It was like, there's an update out for iOS 26, which we are both running in betas on our daily carry phones. And it's largely been okay, I'm going to say, but the battery life was horrific. And they've dropped this update, and actually, do you know what? It's all right.
Yeah, I mean, it was particularly bad. And this update is only for iPhones 15 and 16. It doesn't affect any other device. So if you have an iPhone 15 or an iPhone 16, obviously the Pro models do, you might see an update. It was only a couple of hundred meg, but Friday the 13th of June, this dropped. I installed it, and I agree with you. My phone is a lot less hot than it was. It was continuously hot before.
Yeah, my battery, whilst isn't fantastic, it's 2 years old, was just draining before my eyes. So, yeah, I'm very happy with this.
Yep. Moving on, and a little bit of back to legalities again. We know that in the UK, Apple pulled iCloud, what is it, iCloud, data protection, whatever the extra data encryption level was on files and things. And WhatsApp, so Meta, have come out in support of Apple, saying this can't stand, frankly. And this is fair enough. I don't mind Apple pushing back on encryption against governments, even if it is our own government. You and I have talked at length about this, that we think it's the wrong thing to be doing. And I think more support from the point of, in this case, big tech is right, is a good thing.
Advanced data protection.
There you go. I could see you frantically Googling.
No, I was getting my phone to look through the screen. Interestingly, since I've updated to iOS 26, it hasn't disabled it. It's still turned on. But I would assume if I do buy a new phone this year, it will get disabled at some point. But WhatsApp's right to do this. They should buddy up with Apple and go, look, this isn't the right way forward. So it makes sense. They've both got dominant messaging platforms. WhatsApp's probably more dominant, but you can see why they want to fight this.
And Signal and Telegram and others, they should all be doing this. Anything, or our Nextcloud, anybody that offers end-to-end encryption like this, they should all be of one mind when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Agreed.
Yep. So I think this is a good move, unusually so. Meta actually get a well done from us for a change, and I'm glad Apple are fighting back on it too.
Yep, no, agreed.
Moving on, there's some rumor or some code in the Xcode 26 beta, this is often where you find out about new devices and things like this, and it looks like this code for an Apple Vision Pro 4K simulator. So I presume what we have now is the Apple Vision Pro 4K. This seems to suggest there's something cheaper coming in underneath.
Yeah, it's exactly that. They've changed it from being Apple Vision Pro to Apple Vision Pro 4K. So does that mean they're going to release like a 1080p version? Because obviously they are struggling to get a cheaper version out the door. A lot of the cheaper head units that you get from people like Meta aren't 4K. So this does make a lot of sense that they've done the expensive end of the market, which is Apple's typical move, come in at a premium and then push the technology downstream. I was really expecting them to announce this year that the Vision Pro, the current one, was going to be a bit cheaper, but they haven't done that. You know, we're 18 months into this being out now, and there's no announcement of any price reduction. You'd have thought by now they could be getting some better production numbers out of it, or even if they did some minor hardware refreshes internally that aren't a new version but just cheaper to manufacture. But there's been none of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the fact that you drop the resolution to 1080p, and I think there's 1440 above that. It doesn't need to immediately go all the way down to 1080. 1440 is a possibility as well. Or these are very high resolution 4K screens as well. So maybe you do a lower res version of 4K or a lower pixel density version without the foveated rendering or something. But the knock-on effect of not having to be able to shift so many pixels around is it doesn't need as powerful a processor. It'll be easier on battery. It could be a little bit lighter as a consequence. They don't build it out of metal, they build it out of plastic. They don't put the stupid eyes on the front. There's lots of places you could look at the Vision Pro and think you could cut down on the price all the way through the device. Yeah,
I was watching somebody on a Meta Quest yesterday. I don't know if it's still called that. Oculus Quest. What's it called?
Meta
Quest. They haven't got the eye thing on the front. They just wore it, and it was perfectly seemed all right to me. You don't need that eye projection thing. It's cool, but all you've done is add more cost to a device that's way too expensive.
So it's £3,500,
yep.
Right? There you go, on eBay. Now, right now you could buy one for $2,755.
Still way too much.
Which is still way too much. I've seen some American developers saying you can pick them up for about $1,500.
That's the price point.
That's the price point I think people will be interested in. We actually have a couple of stories later where I could become Vision Pro curious in the right conditions, but yeah.
I am. I think I am curious, way more curious.
Well, you've tried it.
I have tried it in the shop. I'm way curious, but it's just priced way out of my league.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, we've got some usual pushback, I think, that we seem to see increasingly with Apple. For avid listeners, they may remember we talked about this before, that Riley Testell, who of the marketplace in the EU for the Nintendo emulator, which is currently blanking in my head. Anyway, his app marketplace also has the Epic Store on there in Europe, because you can't have the same thing that you've got in America. He has another clipboard manager that's built into that as well called Clip. He was rejected recently. His notarization was rejected for the Clip app. He'd been waiting for 3 days. This is what they said they weren't going to do. They weren't going to reject apps from app marketplaces through notarization. Riley actually went and spoke to the EU as part of this. Apple are currently being fined a huge amount of money in the EU for breaching the DMA. This will, I think, be constituted as another breach.
Yeah, it feels like it, doesn't it? And he's probably in an awkward spot because he's pushing Apple. And are they just going to have a grudge and slow him down on anything now because he's raising the flag and shouting about it? But fair play to him. Alt Store was the name of his app store. I couldn't remember the name either, so I've had to look that up too.
And Delta's the name of the app, of the Nintendo emulator that you can actually get in the App Store proper these days. It almost feels spiteful the way they did it. They approved it in the Alt Store, and then they approved it actually in the App Store proper around the world like a day afterwards, didn't they?
Yeah, it's just not a good look, is it?
Well, they need to be consistent with this stuff. You know, they're arguing with governments and things now, and on the back of all the positive news, and this news story is from June the 7th, so before, well, but just before WWDC, wasn't it? 2 days before WWDC. 2 days before it, they're still doing this to developers. WWDC is the time you get developers back on board, and they kind of did by showing new cool tools, and then they do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. They, like you say, not consistent, and sometimes, I don't know, and not consistent with the interpretation of the rules, but equally strict, far too strict. And there's got to be a balance, and they're just not hitting it.
Yeah. Speaking of new cool tools, I thought this was an interesting post on Mastodon by Carl Hughes. Obviously, all the links are in the show notes. And he's an iOS developer, and I'll just read it verbatim. At work, I'm developing a new iOS app on a small team alongside a small Android team doing the same. We're getting lapped to an unfathomable degree because of how productive they are with Kotlin, Compose, and Cursor. These are Android development tools. They're able to support all the way back to Android 10, which is from 2019, with the latest features. We're targeting iOS 16 from 2022 and have to make huge sacrifices, e.g. observable, parameter packs, and generics and types. Swift 6 makes a mockery of LLMs. It's almost untenable.
It's not good, is it? It's just, especially if you're co-developing and the other team are, rushing ahead, as it were, and getting all the features in, and it's easy, and they can be more widely available for support. And then here you are, using Apple's native tools, and it's a struggle.
It's a struggle. The code's not, and the most galling thing is Swift is open source, really. You can build and run Swift on Windows and on Linux machines and things as well. So the libraries and the code should be available to LLMs. But because Apple hold all these things back for WWDC, that there isn't the support for them in LLMs. There isn't support for them on Stack Overflow and platforms like that to ask for some of the newest technology. And the new technologies are cool, but complicated. Swift UI and Swift is complicated to keep up with. The tools are complex. The tooling is complex. And, that's got to be a worry. And all right, maybe a lot of this code is garbage because it's being spewed out of an LLM. But at the same time, if you're getting a head start with your app that is able to support you building it, and then you can work your way back through the bugs and not do a Microsoft and put 30% of your code into just being generated by LLMs, this is fantastic. And it's good for customers because it's supported on their devices.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And I've been using some LLMs to do development, and they don't know stuff from last year's WWDC. So it is frustrating.
Yep, absolutely. So I think this could be a growing problem for Apple. And, they have started to do stuff for that. We saw at WWDC, but yeah, an issue.
Yeah, a big issue.
Something else is an issue, and I hate to go off on one, but, occasionally I just see a news story that I feel is worth commenting on. The current health minister, effectively, in the United States at the moment, is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a noted anti-vax person. He doesn't believe in vaccines. He believes in miasma theory and all this kind of stuff. And as part of his being confirmed by the Senate, he said he wouldn't put any anti-vaccine type policies into play within the FDA. And he's immediately gone and employed a guy called Mark Geyer, who only has a BSc, and I think he failed that. Or maybe he was a medic and was struck off, I forget, or maybe his dad was a medic and was struck off, for developing nonsense in their basement, basically. And he's appointed this guy as like one of the head of development at the FDA, as well as dismissing in the last week all of the vaccine experts in the FDA. Now, on one level, you think, well, it's America, they can do what they like. On another, frankly, people from America come to the UK and people from the UK go to America. And they have led the world in vaccine development. In the COVID-19 vaccination program, a lot of that came from amazing American scientists. And to put somebody like this in charge in the development and the funding of everything that goes on with it in a country as big as America, which has measles outbreaks and everything that's going on at the moment, I just think is frankly staggering.
Yeah, you know more about this than me, but yeah, it does seem very bizarre that they've employed, B set some things that he's allowed to do and not do, and then just cracked on anyway. So it's not a good look, is it?
Well, we've struck off physicians for making the claims. You know, the MMR vaccine causes autism. It was absolute nonsense. It was debunked. It was pulled out of all the journals. And this guy has published a bunch of dubious articles in low-quality journals, but that there's mercury in some of the vaccines. And there isn't. It's been debunked repeatedly since 2001. You know? So it's just absolute nonsense. And the fact that they've got this pseudoscience, you see, beginning to bleed into a lot what's going on in America. And I fundamentally disagree with everything that they're doing here, and I just think it's got to be bad for a country that's been so strong on science for so long.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, and the fact they're not doing as much research as they used to, it's very frustrating, isn't it?
I'm not even allowed to. But anyway, let's move on and go back to something else. Amazon can't be happy. They sell lots of Fire Sticks, but the reason people buy them is that they enable piracy. And I don't know about you, but in my own life, for people who aren't techie at all, buying a cracked Fire Stick is definitely something that they do.
Yeah, I've never seen one, but I've heard about this. And it does seem more prevalent than I had realised. It's just not a world I live in. I've never really been a Fire Stick person, but yeah, I've heard of multiple people with one of these things, and they can stream, and you just buy the stick once and you've got access to it, and if something's not on there, you can ask for it to be put on there. So I'm not surprised Amazon are annoyed, and equally I can't imagine they're making any money on the Fire Stick. That's just more their way of getting you to subscribe to Amazon Prime and get you to watch Prime Video. So this is not good, is it? And it is a problem. It's a massive problem.
Well, it is, and people were buying these for, like, pubs I know would buy them so they could stream football without having to pay for it.
Wow, okay, I didn't realise that.
Yeah, I mean, no pubs that I go to, obviously, but it's certainly something I'm aware of, and you could buy them cracked, or they're relatively easy to crack, because I think they run some Android operating system underneath it all, that it's very straightforward to get in and crack them, you know, with a bit of light googling that I'm not going to do because I don't want to be delisted. But, you know, these things are relatively straightforward to do. Or you could just go on Amazon itself and buy them pre-cracked, which always amazes me that you could do this kind of thing.
Yeah, like I say, I didn't even realise that was a thing. But okay. Surely this is an easier one for them to tighten the screws on. And you'd have thought Amazon would have a way of maybe having a kill switch, or would patch these holes in these devices, but okay.
I think if you read the article, a lot of the problems around this are that the DRM that comes from some of these streaming services is pretty weak, and they can't update it very much because of the range of devices that might be, that might be connected.
Because you could have somebody with a 5-year-old device, and maybe you can't patch it. It is a big problem.
Yeah. I mean, as an anecdote, I went to the Maldives last year. And they were watching all UK channels and American channels on cracked Fire Sticks. So, this is a pervasive problem around the world.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's it for news. Should we do a little bit of... I'm going to say car corner, but it's kind of vehicle corner more this week.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first off, I thought we should, of relevance, talk about CarPlay. It doesn't necessarily fit in very well to... Well, maybe you have got follow-up on it when we get there, but... CarPlay has notoriously not let you do very much other than what Apple will allow through, and there's an extra amount of vetting happens to CarPlay apps that don't happen to other apps in the App Store. Developers need to buy head units. Mark Warman has famously talked about when he's doing his head unit for Overcast, his development for Overcast. He's got a head unit sat on his desk so he can deploy the app to it to see how it performs. And yeah,
no, I was going to say because not everybody's got CarPlay, especially if you drive a Tesla. And I agree with you. I think CarPlay has been massively behind. Largely Tesla's offering. They've kind of set the standard for what you can and can't do in a car.
Yeah. So anyway, Apple, it seems, are relaxing this a little bit, that now when you're parked, you may be able to AirPlay video directly onto your head unit. And I think that's fine. If you're parked up and you're charging, why not?
I completely agree with this. And lots of very modern cars, I've got huge screens, so this feels like a no-brainer. And it seems like quite a good solution. You don't need to write an app. You just need to, allow AirPlay video, and you can just beam the video to your TV, to your big centralized entertainment screen. Seems like a good idea. I haven't got this working myself, but hopefully it's coming.
No, if the car's in park, or
the engine's off,
handbrake's on. The engine doesn't. If an electric vehicle's charging, the engine may not be off. Right, okay. But in park, it's not going anywhere, is it? If you can put that through to the head unit, and I suspect you probably can, even in that it knows it. Then why not? Stream stuff, play games. You should allow people to do whatever on the head units of the cars.
Yep, completely agree.
So there we go. It's interesting. I don't think it's in iOS 26 yet. I think it's the to come thing.
I had a look in the TV app to try this out. I couldn't get it working.
Yeah, you'd think it would be there first, but we'll see. Anyway, as the betas go on, we'll see what happens with this. But an interesting little development, I think.
Agreed.
Another interesting little development. Listeners that have been with us for a while may know I spent a long time waiting for my VanMoof bicycle to arrive from Holland. That's the S5 is the one that I've got. It looks like VanMoof are about to drop an S6, which have fixed a lot of the problems with the S5. I mean, it's quirky at times, the S5. As somebody who rides one to work most days, the biggest thing they seem to have fixed are the clackiness of the gear shifter. You don't change gears yourself on this bike. It decides based on momentum, velocity, angle of hill, all that kind of stuff, and will change up and down for you. It's only got 3 gears, but they're quite well tuned. It seems to have got rid of that in this bike. It hasn't changed a couple of the other things that I think people were hoping for a belt drive rather than the chain drive this time. But everything else they appear to have fixed with the bike. It looks very similar to my VanMoof. Looks like it's in a new colour as well. But yeah, this is quite exciting.
I always like the look of a VanMoof bike. I just like the styles. I think it's fantastic. And it's great that VanMoof have survived. And this one looks good. They got bought by McLaren Applied, I think I read here, because they did go bankrupt, didn't they? So this is great that it's carrying on. And it's good they're iterating on the design, and they've not just stopped, got bought and not done anything with the brand and that. So I think it's really good.
Yeah, they're good bikes. They're well regarded in Holland. I'd buy another one, I gotta say. I think it's been a really, really good bike. The battery's good enough for me. I'm able to cycle back and forth to work without problem. They're not stupidly fast. You can't just sit with your feet off the pedals whizzing along like Uber and delivery drivers do. You've got to pedal the thing. In the UK, it is restricted, and I haven't made any attempt to hack it. As somebody who's been knocked over by an e-bike, I know how problematic that they can be. But I think this is good, and both designs are getting this. The S5, which has got a step through, and the S5, which is a step over. Both frames are getting it, so exciting.
Yeah, no, it's good, really good.
Should we do some media?
Let's do it.
So first off, and I don't know if you've watched it, is Apple have released a haptic trailer for the F1.
I have seen this trailer. I don't like it. Spoiler. I'm not a big haptics fan. Generally, like on games, I would rather turn the haptics off. I think it's awful. I don't really know what it does for me, if I'm being honest. I don't know what your thoughts are, but that was mine. So this is the F1 trailer, and your phone will vibrate, in time with what's happening in the trailer. I just didn't like it.
Yeah. So apologies for watchers of the YouTube video. You've got to be signed in to something or other to get it to show. It worked fine on my iPhone, but I had this both times when I've tried to launch it on a computer, as it tries to make you sign into apple.com, which I think is a bit rubbish for a trailer. If you've got an iPhone, you should just be able to click on the link and off you
Agreed.
go. Or it should sense the device you're on and take you to the non-haptic version, maybe.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Anyway, exactly as you've described it, it's about, I don't even know how long it was, but immediately you go into the trailer and you've got a Formula One engine at takeover. It's going did, and you feel the vibrations through your phone, and the speaker, the volume felt louder than I had it set as well. But yeah, it was gimmicky, I think is my short review of it.
I think gimmicky is a good word. I'm happy if it's gimmicky because I don't want this to become the norm. It just didn't really do anything for me.
I mean, it's an interesting thing to do. You do it once. I can't see many other things. It didn't add much to my experience of the thing. In fact, I find it quite off-putting.
Yeah, agreed. I thought, oh, somebody's going to ring or my alarm's about to go off, because that's the only times my phone vibrates. So not for me. I can kind of see why they do it, and Apple are pushing hard, as are F1, on this film. So there is a lot of marketing going on.
Yeah, I don't really get it. I mean, I guess you're an F1 fan. I'm not. We're going to talk about something that's more relevant to me in a second. But does this make you want more F1 content in this kind of format, do you think? Or is it making you anticipate the next Drive to Survive more or something?
Not overly. I will watch it, I'm sure. I've been at the track when they filmed it, so I'm curious to see how that comes out. It's quite interesting because some of the clips have got the normal F1 drivers in it, and then there's Brad Pitt pretending to be the extra team. So I'm curious just to see how they've done all of that. But I'm more worried that it's going to be a rubbish film. That's what I think I'm worried about. But the guy who did Top Gun has directed this, so hopefully he's done a good job. He did a good job with Top Gun Maverick, so hopefully he's done a good job with this.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to remake Star Wars with F-18s, I think the Top Gun Maverick is a perfect film for it.
Yeah, that is fair.
Moving on to something I find personally more exciting, because if you're going to have F1, you got to talk about MotoGP. Is that Vision Pro's first third-party Apple immersive video is going to be follows Johan Zarco, who's a French MotoGP rider. In fact, we talked about it here on the show. The Crazy Race, I gave the 6-minute link on YouTube, and you went away and watched it. So you know who Johan Zarco is. He rides a Honda, a satellite team rider. But Vision Pro immersive content announced from Canal Plus on that, which I think is pretty cool, actually.
That is quite cool. So it's just going to make you want to buy a Vision Pro?
Well, that's why I said I hope there's going to be a cheaper one, frankly.
Right, okay.
Because I'm not dropping $3,500 to watch a 15-minute video or something like that.
It's a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I spend enough on MotoGP in the sense that I pay for the annual fee to watch all the races from all the classes. This is the kind of thing that should be thrown in. This is the kind of thing that I wonder if existing Vision Pro owners will go and watch and be converted to watch MotoGP in the same way Drive to Survive, converted lots of people and brought lots of Americans particularly over to start watching Formula One. I would love to see the sport that I'm so passionate about be a little more talked about in the general media. And if they have that winning French MotoGP race on there, what a place to start, because that was really exciting.
Yeah, that's fair. That was quite a cool race.
So I mean, if you can punt out some Vision Pros for about £500 and bring me all the MotoGP races on there, I'm there.
Yeah, I'd probably be the same with F1. And if it looked reasonable, it's hard to explain what that is, but that's my only concern, because I'm going to go and watch the race tonight, and it'll be in 4K on a nice OLED telly.
Yeah. Tell us about Slow Horses Season 5.
Slow Horses, woo! Season 5 gets release date on Apple TV Plus, which is awesome. So it's coming out on Wednesday the 24th September. So I think, to be fair to Apple, they're actually on a good cadence with Slow Horses. They turn them out one a year. I think that's pretty good. And the last 4 seasons have been awesome. So I'm looking forward to Season 5. If I remember correctly, though, they're going to start merging the books together into one season, which I'm a little annoyed by. And the books all run on from each other. But I think they've got enough content to do proper seasons, one for every book. So I'd rather them not condense it.
Yeah, it's certainly been one of the more popular shows, I think. That why would you do that when you're sort of struggling for content in some other pieces? Why would you start condensing books? But I mean, normally it's the other way around. The Hobbit stretched to 3 books. It's really weird
3 films from one small book.
Yeah,
for the Hobbit.
Exactly that.
And the 9th book for the Slow Horses saga, do we call it? I don't know. But the 9th book comes out, I think, in September.
Right. It's also worth mentioning that National Treasure that he is, Gary Oldman got a knighthood in the King's birthday honours list.
I can't believe he hadn't already got one.
I feel a little more attached to this birthday honours list because my boss actually got an OBE as well.
That's quite cool.
Yeah, it's quite cool. So yeah, I mean, it's quite an interesting honours list. I'm not sure about David Beckham getting one. He's a footballer. He's just doing his job, for goodness sake. He gets paid well enough for it. What else does he bring?
Well, he's on every brand in the UK at the moment as well, I think. But no, Gary Oldman, brilliant. I thought he already had one. I'm so glad he's got one.
Yep, I 100% agree. And then last but not least, we had certainly the race finale of Race Across the World last Wednesday, didn't we?
Yeah, well, I finished. I let my kids stay up late. We watched it together. What an amazing show. And so well put together at the end, because you really don't know until the last second who's got it, and you're trying to guess like where the sun and the weather is, like, oh, which one's filmed a little bit before the other one. It was so well done. What a great show.
Yeah, really good. And we're getting an epilogue. We're getting them all back together again this Wednesday, so it's not absolutely the end. There is one episode to come. I'm with you. I'm trying not to give any spoilers. There was one pair that I thought they were way out because it was daylight.
Yeah.
The rest of it was later in the day. But I think it was 4 hours or something like that, covering the people who won to the last place.
It was close. It was so close. But I love all of it.
Yeah, it's great. It's well edited. It's well put together. It's got interesting things to say, about other cultures, our views about getting out there and just what you're able to get on and do when it comes to travel. I think it's a terrific show.
Yep, I completely agree.
Good. And that was Race Across the World. Should we do some games?
Yeah, I've actually played some games this week.
Yeah, I think it's actually been quite good for both of us for games, hasn't it? You bought any hardware, Chris?
I may have got a Nintendo Switch 2 last week.
That's nice. Did I buy any hardware, Chris?
You sent me a picture of you with one on your passenger seat whilst you weren't driving, which is fantastic. So we both bought Nintendo Switch 2. Now, I had pre-ordered one, but I believe you just randomly went and bought one. That's
exactly right. I took a notion. I think I was looking on release day, which was the 5th of June, thinking there's no way in hell I'm going to get one of these things because they were going to be massively constrained. I looked in our local Smith's toy store and I could see there were 3 available to pick up that day. So I reserved one there and then, and I went and got one in the afternoon, and that's when I took a picture because I knew you couldn't have yours that day.
No, mine came, I think, the next day, but I had to hold on to it for my birthday, so my family gave it to me for my birthday, which was cool, but I had pre-ordered it, so I knew what I was getting.
Any thoughts on the hardware?
So thoughts on the hardware, I think one of my thoughts was, because I was talking to a friend, they were looking at buying one for their child, and I thought it's quite big for a kid's game, and you see a lot of children with a Switch. I thought it's quite big for them to hold. I'm gutted that it's not got as much colour. I like the colourful Joy-Cons of the first one. I wish it was a bit more colourful. I think it's well built, but it's very iterative in my view. You've got the same thing that holds the Joy-Cons, so you can have it as a controller. You can hold the Joy-Cons on the side. The Switch is largely the same, the actual unit. The dock's very similar. It feels like it's very iterative for a console that's been, 9 years behind its predecessor. So I'm surprised they haven't done more, but I quite like it. All feels quite nice. It feels pretty good. And the Switch was an amazing console. And I do wonder whether Nintendo got burnt when they did the Wii U, where they had a really successful platform and then they went too far with the successor and they got it wrong and nobody really bought the Wii U. And so they then launched the Switch after that. That was a massive hit. And so they've gone way more iterative than what they've done historically.
Yeah, I'm mostly with you. I've got a few thoughts about the hardware. It's quite well made. It's definitely an iteration on what came before. The dock, which I think you've told me before, the OLED Switch had a LAN port in it. My original Switch didn't. It could do with a few more USB-C connectors on it. There's a fan in the back of the dock. It doesn't fit in the dock as well as did the previous one. There's a lot more wiggle when you're putting the console into the dock compared to the way that it was. I really like the magnets. I think
that is a win.
They're an awful lot better than trying to slide them in because one of my children slid one of mine in the wrong way round once, so that was problematic. So this is an awful lot better.
I can imagine that being mildly stressful.
It was mildly stressful. I mean, it's not the end of the world. You can do it. But, the other thing I know is that the original Switch had a problem with drift, Joy-Con drift they called it, where they appeared to get stuck in one direction, so you were sort of always going off in one way. They haven't changed the fundamental technology that's underlying this, so these may drift as well.
I have that problem with my PS5 controllers. I've had 2 go bad with that.
I've never had any of them go bad with that. The biggest problem with the hardware is actually the cost of the thing, because it was 469 quid, something like that, I think, to buy the
430
Switch.
Maybe, I think.
With Mario Kart.
Mario Kart, yep.
Yeah, but that's a lot of money. In fact, I think that's about 30 quid more than a PlayStation 5.
Yeah, it is a lot of money.
And at the moment, and turning to the next part of this, the games are fairly limited on the Switch 2 compared to what you can get on other. It's a new release thing, that's fine. But Mario Kart World is it, really, with the launch of the Switch.
So there's way less content on the Switch 2. Just one note just on hardware, though. I think what they have done, which is really good, is you can use all your Nintendo Switch controllers with it. So we were playing 4-player Mario Kart, one with the 2 Joy-Cons, one with Joy-Cons off the first one, and then 2 Pro controllers off the first Nintendo Switch. So big tick there. But with regards to content, you go on the store, and all Switch 2 titles have like a little red banner across the top. And there are very few Switch 2 native titles available, which is a little frustrating. I did buy No Man's Sky because it was 15 quid, and I thought, actually, it's probably a good device for me to play that on. I've played the device both in, I guess 3 ways. I've had it on the telly, I've had it in my hands, and I've had it propped up on the desk because it's got a built-in kickstand with a Pro controller. And I've enjoyed it all the time. I've had a few issues with connectivity of controllers. I'm assuming that's just teething bugs. But the software is largely the same. They fixed the shop, which is good. The shop's way quicker, but there just isn't the content there. But it's good. It's iterative. It doesn't feel like it's been 9 years since they last released a console, or 8 years.
No, I'm with you. I think it's a better handheld console than dock console. I know you get 4K with the fan when it's docked, but it doesn't have the grunt that a PlayStation 5 has got, or an Xbox S or X has got, or a gaming PC has got. And you can see that on the screen. Mario Kart World looks amazing. There's an awful lot more detail going on. You can see there's more processing available to it. But if you get it in 2-player or 4-player and all the rest of it, you can see it's definitely beginning to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, it's a bit laggy.
Having said that, it's night and day compared to the original Switch in terms of performance. The shop is good. The download speeds are okay. The Wi-Fi is not the greatest experience in the world, I got to say.
Yeah, I thought about this. I think part of that is just because Mario Kart World is massive, and if you buy the version with Mario Kart World, you basically just get a redemption code, so you're not actually getting it on a card. It's definitely it's so much faster. That is night and day. I would agree. I think it's a great bit of hardware. I'm happy with it. I've already filled mine because I just set it to download all the games I already owned on the Switch, which again I think is good. You can reuse all your downloadable content. It's got my saves on it. That bit's great. It will take an SD card, but you need the newer, faster SD Express, which I don't have, so I'll probably have to pony up some money for one of those at some point.
Yeah, I got bit by this. I took out the very, very fast SD card that's in my GoPro that can record video at 4K and 120 frames per second or something like that, and it wasn't good enough.
Which seems odd, doesn't it? Because it doesn't feel like it's a ridiculously fast console.
It does feel a little bit like they're maybe trying to make a little bit of money out of that somewhere along the lines. And, Nintendo make money on their consoles. They're known for it. So I think we're probably going on about it enough. I think it's fun. I bought a Pro Controller 2 to go with it as well.
Ooh.
That was 80 quid.
Yeah, they're expensive. I've got 2 Pro Controllers from the first time around. I'm just going to use those.
Yeah. I think it's got an extra set of buttons around the back. It's got mappable buttons right on the back of it, which the original ones didn't. And you can switch it on with it remotely, which you couldn't do with the original Switch Pro Controller.
Right, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's good. And Mario Kart, let's move on to Mario Kart, so I'm not just showing the same video all the time. Also, for YouTube viewers, I had Jerry Rig Everything's teardown video in the background as well, where he scratches screens and takes controllers apart and destroys batteries and all that kind of stuff as part of what he does. It's worth a watch, I think, just to see what's actually in a Switch and how it comes together. And he does take the Joy-Cons apart, and you can see that they are the same as the original. He actually takes the haptic motor out of one as well. Takes that apart too. It's a tough little console. It does okay. Don't take the screen protector off though.
No, do not do that. I think it is good. Yeah, it's all right. Should we have a look at Mario Kart?
Let's look at Mario Kart. So Mario Kart, it's Mario Kart. But I like a lot about it. I like the detail. The animation is better. It looks really quite good on a TV as a single player game. I find the course is a little weird though.
I find some of them a bit samey. I on the whole like it. My kids were frustrated because you can't pick your wheels and your colour of some characters or your glider. They're like, where's all that gone? I quite enjoyed doing that, and I have customising my car a little bit. So I think they're missing a little bit of that.
The detail on the water is particularly good. As an old-time fan of Wave Race 64 from the N64, I had the best water physics in any game ever. Well, I haven't played a lot of sailing games on PCs, I guess, but I appreciate the water sections when it turns into a little boat.
Yeah, I do. I think on the whole, we've really enjoyed it. We had some great tournaments on it yesterday. It was nice to have that, which we haven't done for a long time with Mario Kart. I think on the whole, it's a great game. It's got some different power-ups, which is good. You can, have your kart go on rails, like you would if you were a skateboarder. I think on the whole, it's good. There's a knockout version. I'm looking forward to going through it. I've already completed it just very quickly, got to the end, got the credits. But I want to go back through and gold all the cups like I've done before.
Yeah, I unlocked Rainbow Road, wherever that was, which you got to do. I haven't quite got to the credits yet, I don't think.
You've just got to do that one, that Grand Prix,
No, I've
and
done
then
it.
there.
I've done it, then I have unlocked it. And a bunch of carts and stuff. It's not very hard to do.
No, it's not at all. But it is, again, probably like the console. It's very iterative. I'm hoping the future's bright for more content, more games, and this should tee me up nicely for my, the next 5 years of mobile gaming, hopefully.
I did pick up Fast Fusion, which is a launch title as well. It's basically Wipeout, but for the Nintendo.
I haven't played this, so what do you think?
I haven't played enough of it. I keep going back to Mario Kart. It's quite impressive. You get a great sensation of speed. It's apparently a series. It's the third game in a series that came on the GameCube. Who knew? Also, as 4-player racing, it was also only 16 quid, so I thought I'll pick that up.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's kind of why I ended up buying No Man's Sky, because it was ridiculous. They had a massive sale on. It's normally like 50, 60 quid, and it was 15 quid, I think, so I picked it up. I did look at this, but I thought I've already got a racing game. I'll get something different to play on it. It does look cool.
It's not bad. It's probably worth checking out if you like. If you like a Wipeout style game, it's definitely there. It's got the music and it's their own game engine. The software company they make it, it's not written in Unreal or anything. They've written everything from scratch. There's some odd little sort of pixely details on some of it to get this sort of sensation of speed that they've got. But it's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. We can go with that.
I mean, No Man's Sky I own on PC. I own on PlayStation 4. I'm not buying it again, basically.
See, I've never played it. So it was kind of made sense. Yeah, I know it's quite a shock, but it kind of made sense to me. Well, might as well get on here. It's 15 quid. Like I say, it feels like, for me, the right sort of console to play that on.
Yeah. I did fire up Breath of the Wild, see what the original Switch emulation was like, and it looked fine.
I played loads of Switch 1 games on it. I fired up a bit of Quake 1, and it looks amazing, and it's so fast. So I played a bit of that, and I played a bit of... I tried Mario Odyssey, because there was like a free upgrade out for Mario Odyssey, but I couldn't really tell whether I had the upgrade or not. There wasn't anything to download, so I think it just does it, but it didn't seem to do much for me.
Yeah, I tell a lie. I've played that as well. I played one course I hadn't played before, and it worked really well. It works really well with the Pro Controller, actually.
Yeah, the Pro Controller is such a good controller, that Pro Controller.
That's probably enough on Nintendo. Moving on, Steam has finally gone native, so hand in hand with Apple retiring Rosetta. I think on the same day, Steam announced that they were finally going to have an Apple Silicon native version. This is for the launcher, not for the games. The launcher used to require that you had Rosetta 2 installed as well, and that's gone away if you enable the beta anyway. So if you go into your Steam client, switch on the beta, you'll get a much faster version of the Steam client for your Mac.
Which is good, because it always felt like they weren't really doing a lot with the Steam client on the Mac, so it's good they're updating it.
I think Valve got badly burned by Apple. They believed them one of the times that they said we're all in about gaming. And if you remember, they released, Team Fortress Classic, Team Fortress 2 with AirPods for a bunch of the players and things like that. They brought the Source engine to Mac. They had Counter-Strike 2 almost ready to go on Mac before Apple disappointed them for the last time, wouldn't let them bring the client to Mac, yada, yada, yada. I think Valve have lost it with Apple, and who can blame them? The years of being disappointed. But there you go, they've done this at least.
Yeah, agreed. So fair play to them.
Yep. Last one is just one that I thought looked interesting. I don't think you're a Game of Thrones fan.
Never seen it.
Amazing that you've never seen it.
I love that 2 years in, I can still blow your mind of stuff I've never seen.
I should really just be used to it. But you do like a real-time strategy game. You do like a Command & Conquer or whatever, yeah?
I love a Command & Conquer.
Well, there you go. The two things can come together now. So on the horizon is a real-time strategy game where you can play the Lannisters, the Starks, the Targaryens, or the Night King, and just do a little bit of real-time strategy in the world of Westeros, which I, for one, am here for.
Fair enough. And is this out now? Is it coming? Or
no, it's coming. It's in development. Okay. War for Westeros. It's coming in 2026. So.
Okay, that's not too far away now. We're halfway through 25.
We're halfway through 2025. That is true. Anything else in games you want to tell us about?
No, I've literally just played the Switch this week.
I forget you don't have a job anymore. You're able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. It's all right.
Main show?
Let's do it.
Right, I'm not sure what visuals to put up while we do this, so I'll go back to the WWDC thing, and I just thought it'd be worth 5 minutes on our impressions of the betas, really, as much as anything else. Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, I think that is a good idea. I've used most of the betas, so I've got some hands-on experience. So let's start with iOS, which is probably the one most people are keen on. I think we both installed the beta on the Monday it came out. It crippled the battery. It's it's a little buggy. But obviously we wanted to play with all the new hotness, and I think my feedback, and I don't want to speak for you, I'd say is mixed. There's some great stuff in there. There's some nice tweaks, and I'm all talking visually rather than functionality. And there's some things I would question.
I think that's fair. So first off, most things work. I don't think I've had too many problems with apps and things. My banking apps work. My email app worked. Most things work, at least.
Yep, I would agree with that. I haven't had any showstoppers on my phone.
I have. Overcast broke. I went to walk the dog around the park. Overcast just completely refused to load. It just said syncing and just sat there doing nothing. I don't blame Marco for this. It looks like it's working on your phone. It's working again now, but just I couldn't make it work. And it wasn't the phone, because I managed to download Apple Podcasts and download a podcast into Apple Podcasts. I'd actually deleted Apple Podcasts off my phone at some point. So I don't know what, maybe I just hit the Overcast servers at a really bad point or something and it was down and it was actually Overcast's fault. I don't think so. I blame the beta. So that was the first issue I had. And then 2 days ago, I got continual Springboard relaunches. I just got a sequence of the spinner and it dying and the spinner and it dying. So I actually switched the phone off and rebooted it, and then it was fine again. But from a performance point of view, at least, most things seem to work with a couple of little glitchiness, and the battery fix has helped as well. It's been fine.
Yeah, I think it's been fine. The battery fix has helped massively. I wouldn't recommend that anybody install it right now. I would wait if you really want it for the public preview.
And possibly a little bit beyond that.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Like I said, I wouldn't rush. So, what's your initial impressions then? What was your view?
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, the first thing I did was go into the edit menu and turn on transparency for all the icons, and that broke everything. Most of my widgets, all the backgrounds, and everything just went horribly wrong. And there's not enough contrast. And that's sort of the headline thing, is the transparency, the liquid glass. You want to sort of immediately turn that on and have it work. Didn't like it at all. Backed out of it. What about you?
Yeah, it's similar. So I didn't do that. I think I loaded up a bunch of apps. So I went into Apple Music, tried it out. I think actually all the translucency is a little frustrating because it can be hard to read, distracting, to see colours behind some of the icons. So I'm a bit mixed on that. The big one for me was Apple Music, where you now have two toolbars, like one for now playing and one for the icons across the bottom. And then when you scroll, they morph into one toolbar. And then when you scroll back to the top again, it unmorphs. I just think it's unnecessary, and there's a bit more hidden behind taps, and that's a little frustrating. Screens have got bigger, but yet we're showing less functionality, less content, and I don't know what I'm getting out of that. I don't want to tap it more. I want to tap it less. That's what we can now do. So that'd be my biggest frustration. I think some of the transparency is too much, and some stuff's hidden behind these taps.
Yeah, we're both there with the transparency. I think they need to dial it back a bit. I mean, I get what they're trying to do. It's always another layer on top of it. But the Photos app or the Camera app is the best example of that. Whereas all you get at the bottom are photos and video, and if you want any more detail at all, you need to swipe up effectively over the buttons at the bottom to get into the detail of what you might want to do with the app. Now, some may say that's a pro move. I don't think so. I think people took panoramic videos or selfies or whatever it is they wanted to do within that. So I'm with you. They're abstracting too much away from the normal functionality.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we needed it. We already had iOS 7 years ago that said, right, content's king. And now we're there. And the video for this was very similar to the iOS 7 one. Content's really important, so we're pushing everything out of the way. It's like, you've already done that. If you push it all out of the way again, you're just hiding things. That's a little annoying.
Yeah, content, is it always king? I mean, genuinely, that sometimes they put in user interface elements that, all right, you can see through it, but it wasn't useful screen real estate anyway. You can see that with the URL bar in Safari and things like that. That there is a balance between the Chrome around it that you need to work on your content or work with the content and what they're always saying. And content isn't always king. I genuinely don't believe that this is the case. Obviously, it wanted to get out the way appropriately, but you want to do stuff to it. You want to work with the menus. You want to copy some text. You want to, what is the very, very bottom of the website that's got some really important thing to get to the unsubscribe or the preferences or something like that. And the UI sits over the top of it and you can't get at it. So I think they've got a bit mad with that.
Yeah, I'd agree. And like you say, you want to do more with it. I mean, we're in an era now where some people just have an iPhone. That is their computer. And people do so much on it. And yet we're now pushing all the functionality out of the way. Whereas actually people want that more and more now.
Yeah, so it's fine. When it comes to a lot of the new stuff, I'm I'm kind of on the fence about it. I think I don't mind them doing a graphical refresh. I'd encourage it, really. I think iOS 7 really sort of spurred people on. You liked it, you hated it, you were somewhere in the middle, but at least it was people were talking about it again. And you do need to move, the visuals of an operating system on from time to time. So I'm fine with them doing it. I'm just questioning some of the choices, really.
Yeah, I think it was due a refresh. And there's some good stuff. There's some nice bouncing and all of that. The icons I'm still not sure about. I don't know. It feels like developers can have less control over their icons than ever before. The one thing I do really like is the new CarPlay, though. I've used that quite a bit, and actually I quite like nearly all the things they've done on CarPlay. Again, it's had the visual refresh. There's a bit more functionality in there. You can now have widgets in CarPlay. The apps are better. They now take advantage of wider screens and things. They've done some really nice stuff to CarPlay, and I think that's probably the biggest win on the iPhone for me.
Yeah, I haven't tried CarPlay. One of my cars doesn't support it, and I cycle to work, as previously mentioned. So it's not something I'm going to use routinely. I think I'll probably get a shot next Friday. But yeah, I quite like the new lock screen. The clock's a bit weird. It's a bit inconsistent with your photos, whether it's going to show the big number behind it. And I look at a picture and think, oh, you could get the big time in behind that, and it decides not to. It's very picky about what you sort of want to use in your backgrounds and things like that. They haven't done enough to fix notifications. I'm aware I'm coming over a little bit negative at the moment. For first beta, I think it's okay. If they dial some of this stuff back, I think it'll be quite solid.
I think it's what I expected for first beta. What's interesting with the big tall number that you can see on the screen that you're showing is you can only do that on one clock face. You can drag it down or make it smaller, but you can only do it on one clock face, which I thought was odd.
Not always. It's inconsistent. It sometimes shows behind the buildings that I wanted to, but it's obviously decided there's not enough space at the top of that to do it.
Yeah, I guess it's what it can distinguish.
Yeah, Apple being opinionated, but I expect them to be opinionated. I'm okay with that. Should we talk about macOS?
Yeah,
so I've installed this on one of my work computers. I've used it all week. Performance is abysmal. If you open up the new Safari, and I deliberately switch back to Safari from Firefox, have 4 tabs and try and drag them around, the whole computer grinds to a halt. It's really poor.
I probably haven't used it as much because my main Mac is still on Sequoia. I'm trying to remember the names. I do wish we dropped the names now. Why can't everything just be numbers? Because I still struggle. I've used it a little bit. I think it's okay look-wise. I don't get why everything is rounded, and it feels like everything's far too rounded. And the toolbar icons just jump out above all. Content's king unless you've got toolbar, and then the icons are king because they just jump out at you too much. But something I quite like. I think it's okay.
Yeah, the Finder's awful for that. That if you've got an active Finder window, the back or go buttons are just jumping off the page for you. And I agree with you on the roundedness. Our screens aren't that rounded, frankly. So why would you make the corners of everything that rounded?
Feels like they're going to be, though.
Yeah, I very much dislike it. So I think that's a problem. Spotlight is the thing I was most interested to try, and I was initially quite excited with Spotlight. Its performance is much better. As an Alfred user, it's up there with Alfred. So finding files and all that kind of stuff works well. To bring it to life, you do Command Space, as you always have done. But now you can do Command 1, Command 2, Command 3, Command 4 to go into shortcuts, applications, and clipboard, and clipboard's Command 4. Or you can right arrow over rather than do it. So you launch it with Command Space and then hit the right arrow, and you can work your way through those sections. Clipboard works. I was quite excited. I disabled my Mackie as my clipboard manager of choice. But if you go away and come back in 12 hours, it loses everything out the clipboard. What's the point of that?
That's frustrating.
Maybe it's a beta thing. Maybe it's a memory thing. I don't know. But Mackie, it persists across reboots even. So I can have my 100 items on my clipboard if I want to go back and do it. Why wouldn't clipboard?
Yeah, that is cool. I'd like to think it's a beta thing, so hopefully it'll get resolved.
I hope it will get resolved. There's also a really odd warning about apps running in the background. So, any of those things in your menu bar that sit up there, when I installed it for the first time, it was like, Microsoft OneDrive is running in the background. Are you happy with this? Well, yeah, I'm happy with this. It needs to run in the background. What you even asked me about this for? So in the same way last year with video apps, they went through all this kind of stuff and they went, oh, it's going to record your screen. Now they seem to be taking a good long look at things that run multitasking in the background.
That's kind of interesting, isn't it? And it's a bit... Yeah, I haven't seen that on mine, I must confess, which is odd because I do have some stuff running in the background.
I mean, it's a thing. It's definitely a thing. I should maybe have grabbed a screenshot of it for you and the listeners. But yeah, there you go. But other than that, it hasn't crashed on me at all. It's just been a bit laggy and imperformant. I've got issues with some of the displays we've talked about, the transparencies and the corners of things, but it's a reasonably solid operating system. I've managed to do work in it.
Yeah, I've used it for a little bit of work. I do think they've rounded everything. I mean, if you look on the macOS section of the webpage you got up, actually I think they have fixed the issue that you and I have got with the shadowy buttons, because those screenshots don't show it like we're getting it. So I wonder if when the next release comes out, which people at Apple are already using, it'll be okay. But I think it is frustrating how rounded everything is. They've tried, they've used one rounded corner for everything, and it feels like it's too much. It feels like they need some difference.
I'm with you. I've turned Apple Intelligence back on for all these things so I can experience them all, including on my phone, for what it's worth. One of the features, I don't know if it's because it's not in the beta I'm using, but Craig showed in Keynote that you should be able to do the remove background from Spotlight within Keynote, and I couldn't make that work.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that. Maybe I need to have another look.
So that's one of the things that it's meant to be able to do for you. So, and I'm also aware that I need to define more shortcuts to get the text clipping feature to work. So he does an example where you type SM to send mail or send message, and then it should prompt you for the person. And that's not working terribly well for me either. But I'm encouraged. I think there's more positive things in macOS than I thought there was going to be, and we're still able to treat it as a proper grown-up operating system. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I think it looks good, and I wonder if it is going to pave the way for some newer devices with curved screens and what have you, curved corners and what have you. They just need to dial it in. And like I say, looking at the screen grabs on that website, they look better. So I wonder next version. And it's often the way the first one comes out, it's a bit hit and miss. And by the time we get the second beta, they've tightened it up a lot.
Curved corners like my nice framework laptop has.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah. Tell us about iPadOS then, because that's probably the thing we're both most excited about.
I think using iPadOS, the first time I loaded it up, and I'm not working at the moment, which you've already touched on, so I'm not using as much as I would have done, but instantly my 11-inch felt cramped. That's the first thing I thought, like, whoa, everything's got a bit bigger, needs a bit more room. But you know what? I put it in the window mode. I turned off Stage Manager. I think they've nailed it. I think they've got it a lot right. I don't need to hold shift now and drag icons. I can just tap on an icon and it works. I can resize it. I can have it take over the screen. I can pull down the menu bar from the top, even if I'm just using my finger and I haven't got a keyboard attached. They've just made it work. If you want to have it as a typical iPad, you can. If you want to not have Stage Manager, which for me just doesn't click, and you want to have Mac, I'd call it the Mac-like way, which is what they call their middle option, it's fantastic. I think they've really nailed it. It's quite intuitive to use. You can make apps full screen, you can shrink them, you can dock them to the left, you can flick up and it pushes everything to the side. I think it's really good, and for a long time iPad user, for the last 5 years I've used an iPad every day to do my job. I think it's fantastic, and I'm a little gutted I'm not working at the moment and using it, because I'd like to use it a bit more. I think it's really cool what they've done. I think they've got it right.
Yeah, well, it's encouraged me to plug in my iPad, put the beta on there, and actually use it this week. I'd almost entirely gone to laptop, so well done, Apple. You got me looking at it again. I agree with almost everything that you said. I think it's a really good thing. The interface still seems a little inconsistent to me, so when I'm running a couple of things in Windows and I go somewhere else and it goes full screen again on that app, I don't want that behavior. I want that to pop in as a window as well. So rather than immediately go full screen because I've decided to flip over the web browser or something like that. And the way the windows shoot off to the side are a little bit odd while you're sort of using the dock. So it's like an odd hybrid between a Mac and an iPad at the moment. But it is nonetheless considerably better. Having lots of windows open on your computer is a really useful thing.
Who knew? Not just 4.
Yeah, so I like that. I'm not sure what the limitations are on my M1. I suspect if I opened up 100 windows, quite a few of them would actually be zombies in the background with their state saved. I don't know what that limit is, though.
I don't know what the limit is, but I don't think you'll push the limit of it in the normal course of what you're doing. I think on the whole, they've got a lot right. I think I have found a showstopper bug if you try and use picture-in-picture for video. It just kills the iPad. You have to hard reboot it. That's the only real showstopper I've seen, because I do use my iPad a lot for consumption of video. I think they've nailed it. I really do think they've re-engineered the iPad to find that middle ground, like I say, between the Mac and the iPhone. I think they've actually done a really good job taking some elements from the Mac, but still keeping it iPad-like. I'm really impressed.
The one thing I'd like them to change, well, there's a couple of things I'd like them to change, but the Mac OS traffic lights in the top left corner that you have to tap on and then tap again, why not just make them tappable? I don't understand why they need to pop out.
Because they're quite small, aren't they?
They're not that, so just make them bigger.
Yeah, agreed.
When you actually tap them, it doesn't make that much difference. So they should just be in the bigger state and in the corner of the window.
It's another double tap. And if you've got an app full screen, you have to pull the menu bar down to get the traffic lights to then do that. I kind of agree with you there. Just hiding too much. But I think largely they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I 100% agree. This is the way the iPad should have been 10 years ago.
Yeah, done. They already had multitasking on the same chip. So, yeah.
It is worth pointing out, just to, can't be too positive all the time. Engadget did a really good write-up about actually the biggest roadblock now is the walled garden approach that Apple have, because now I could see myself using the iPad to work. But if I want to install our Studio in there, which is a Mac-compatible app that we know the iPad has all the right bits for underneath, I can't because it's not in the App Store. So we're immediately going to hit off the limitations of what's there. And if Apple did do the fine, we'll allow you to sideload Mac apps on here, lots of people would rush out and buy an iPad instantly and keep their Macs because it's not perfect for every situation. But why reduce it in the way that you are? We've seen what it can do. We know it's got the power. Let us get on and do that. And I completely agree with Engadget on this.
Yeah, I can see it, but I guess they need that differentiation, don't they?
Why? Steve Jobs was never worried about one device cannibalizing another, and Apple did pretty well under Steve Jobs.
Fair point.
Thank you. One thing that I thought was interesting, as people start to maybe think of other iPads that weren't Pros, that don't have the folios, that are massively expensive and all the rest of it, I think this is a really interesting little device from Logitech here called the Flip Folio, which comes with a detachable keyboard and a stand, so you could maybe make use of one of those other iPads, like the bog standard one that will now also work with this as well, and have a useful little office up and running. I just think this looks really neat.
The bog standard iPad looks like a pretty good buy now. It's a lot harder to say to somebody you need a Pro because you don't.
Yep. So $179.99. I had a previous Logitech keyboard and mouse case. I forget what it was called in my very first iPad Pro. It was a great device. I think they make good products to go with iPads and Macs and things. Logitech. So this is a bit of a winner, I think.
I completely agree with you. I think they make great devices. I'm a big Logitech fan. So yeah, agreed.
Do you want to tell us about tvOS?
I installed tvOS on all three of my TVs.
Okay, and?
Nobody in my house noticed. So I think that pretty much summarises tvOS. The only thing that does pop up when you first reboot it is a login screen, so you can pick the icon of the family member. And then there's a button at the bottom that says, don't show me this again. So I just tap that. Because we've all got used to turn on the TV, don't pick who you are. You can always just change it at the top. But most people, we watch most things under my account. But it's fine. There's nothing really in there.
It's fine. Okay, a PSA for you then, in case you didn't know, if you've got Sonos speakers or other wireless speakers, you can now set them to be the default audio output. So there you go. You can have an Sonos Era 100 in this example as the default audio output from your Apple TV. Why you would is beyond me, because you'd want a sound bar and that would be plugged into HDMI, but it's an option if you want it.
I actually set a TV up for somebody and they use their Bluetooth speaker. Horses for course. I guess it just makes it more flexible, doesn't it?
And TV speakers are generally rubbish.
Agreed.
Anything else for our initial impressions of the beta, or is that us?
No, I think that's it. On the whole, it's good. It's nice to have something different to talk about, and everything's been touched in some way. I must confess, I like the new phone app. Actually, we didn't touch that. And when you first launch the phone app, it asks you, would you like to have the new look and feel? Which I thought was interesting, because maybe Apple are a bit worried that people won't like it, but I think it's fine. I think they're making a lot of they've done a lot right. They just need to dial it in. But on the whole, yeah, I quite like where we're going.
Yeah, my last comment was you turned on a background in our chat, and I immediately turned it off because I couldn't read the text because it was dreadful.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten about it. I just wanted to try it out.
Yeah, it was like an animated cloudy background thing. It was awful. I genuinely couldn't read some of the words on the screen.
Yeah, they've still got some work to do, haven't they? But this is what they've got the next 2 months to do, is refine and sharpen it up.
App of the week?
Go for it.
So my app of the week is a tvOS app, actually. It's called RetroArch. I think I've talked about it before for the Mac, but it is actually available for your Apple TV, and what this lets you do, in a slightly convoluted, complicated way, install all manner of other consoles or old computers and emulate them on your tvOS. So I have a NES, SNES, C64 and Commodore Amiga emulator on my Apple TV now. I've been playing a bit of Whizball from back in the day in Commodore 64. There's a couple of really good YouTube guides on how to set it up. I paired it with an Xbox controller because I'm not using my Xbox at the moment. It works really, 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 really well. I'm quite impressed with it. It's like I say, not the simplest thing to set up, but actually once you're up and running with it, it's terrific.
I'm amazed I can do this on my Apple TV.
You didn't know, did you?
I literally didn't know. You've blown my mind.
Well, there you go. I think you should, as a little trial for yourself, you should go and have a go at doing it.
Okay. Maybe I can squeeze that in this week.
And if I get the chance, I will remember to put a link to the YouTube video on how to do the setup.
Okay.
Thing of the week.
So I've just gone with Apple's OS numbering. I love that they've just harmonized numbering because I can never remember who's got what version. And when you're supporting your family and you can't remember who's got what, I just love that, your watch, your iPad, your TV, your Mac, your iPhone, all got the same. So I think it's a minor thing, but I love it. That's made my life a little bit easier, which is what I like.
Well, I mean, on one level, I'm entirely with you. I think it is good, but really, just a numbering system. It's that. That's
well, we've
thing,
already
that was
talked about the betas. We've already talked about the Switch. So that was my thing of the week.
Fair enough.
There you go.
I think we can call that a show, Chris.
I think so. So if anybody wants to get in contact with us, Rod is at g5maniac@marston.scot. He's also on Blue Sky and he's at g5maniac.bsky.social. I'm on Marston and I am at _CJP at marston.social. You can watch on YouTube by going to our website and clicking on the YouTube link. Or you can drop us an email at wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week,
Cheers,
Chris.
Rod.